Welcome to the Rant Live. Thanks for joining the Rant Live, everybody. It's Monday, September 19th. I can't believe it's almost the end of September. Randomly, I was setting up the show and I went into YouTube to make sure everything was all set up. And I was, kind of in the suggested videos was Addison Russell's Grand Slam from Game 6, which I was at. And it's interesting to see like the call on TV, because I haven't really ever gone back and watched. I watched a little bit of the TV broadcast, but because I was at all 7 games of the World Series, I wasn't kind of, party to seeing it on TV. And I don't know. It's just a cool way. It's like I can experience it again, but in a different way.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, it's what's interesting. There's I think today's the anniversary of Anthony Rizzo kind of showing back up in the lineup when they did, he jacked his ankle up in that game a few years ago, and it had swollen up to the size of like a bowling ball is what it looked like. I mean, he put the pictures out on Twitter or whatever. And everybody's like, oh, they knew he was going to be out, for the rest of the season is what it looked like. I mean, there's like no way, because it's pretty late at that point, or at least that he'd be missing a week. But he ended up coming back and playing, and I was at that game, but I was in one of the rooftops. It was a corporate event thing that was going on that I was there as a part of, and that's like an even weirder experience than being at the game, because you don't have the PA. You don't have the same, like you're there. And the only 2 games, the last 2 games I've attended, the last 2 Cubs games were at a rooftop, and it was in 2020. And it's really weird. Like, it's so odd that I didn't go last year, and I haven't gone this year until, knock wood, everything goes well next week. But I've been to the rooftops like 4 or 5 times, and it's just such a weird experience, because it feels, and I'm trying to think, it's like you're watching the game on TV, but without the broadcast, if that makes sense, like without the commentary or anything, because you're removed from it. There's a different feel to that. Well, you were there at the one too when we saw, they were playing the Brewers, and I want to say that was, partway through that 2020 season, and then I saw them get beat. That was like get eliminated by the Marlins.
June,
it was it's like a beautiful day. Just a really nice night and everything. And so it's a cool experience. And so anyway, I guess that's my way of rambling around to the point where I've only seen them on TV. I've seen them play other teams, particularly the Reds. I've been to several Cubs games. I've been to several major league games over the last couple of years, but timing has conspired against me. So, but it is, as you mentioned, though, I think the thing is when you have like a milestone kind of a game that you were at, and you saw some of those things. I was at the game when Rizzo busted the D out of the Budweiser sign above the scoreboard and right. Right. Like I was at that game, and it was weird to then see it from a different angle later and be like, oh wait, I was at that one, kind of a thing. So,
because the broadcast always makes it feel so much different too, right? I mean, it's just like, you can never relive being at a game live. And so when you see it on a broadcast, it's just like, it's, I don't know, the camera work is always so much better, right? You can see the ball flying out when you're there, you're watching the ball. And I actually got that Grand Slam. I recorded it on my phone, and we actually have that on our YouTube channel, because I was 5 rows behind home plate at that Game 6. And I have, it's like a critical moment. The bases are loaded. It was the top of the 3rd inning, and the Cubs were already up 3-0. And so I'm like, I am definitely going to record this. And I happen to get the Grand Slams. It's glorious. It was glorious to go back and watch it, like every single moment of that, of those 2 games, especially. I mean, the first 5 games of that series were just a slog. To be honest with you, it was like you didn't know what was really happening with Kyle Schwarber. he came back. He looked really good. Was it game 2? I think he almost hit a double. He did hit a double, didn't he?
Yeah, it was one.
Almost hit a home run.
Yeah. That was game 2.
And everybody, all the announcers on both sides were saying, "Oh, good people." As I'm leaving the stadium in Cleveland after game 2, like fans of Cleveland were like, "All right, hey, congratulations! There's no way where you guys are going to make it back here. I'm sure you guys are going to." And like, I'm pulling into Chicago, and the radio stations are all talking about how the Cubs are gonna win the World Series in Chicago, and like everyone totally believed that the Cubs were going to win the World Series in Chicago. And we know that didn't work out very well. In fact, they lost the next 2 games and got down 3-1 before barely winning that game 5. And so it's just a slog. And then when you got to game 6, it was just such a glorious ass kicking. They just beat the snot out of them. Yeah. And they were actually really beating the snot out of them in game 7, to be honest. Until that home run by what's his name on the Indians.
Yeah, we will not mention that.
What's his name?
Further.
But I will tell you, I was at the Montero Grand Slam in the NLCS against the Dodgers, and that was loud. But I will tell you, when the man from the Indians hit that home run I think it was to tie the game, that stadium shook.
Yeah,
that stadium shook. I mean, it was insane, and there were a lot of Cubs fans there, so it wasn't like it was all Indians fans, and it was shocking. But it's just great to relive that.
Yeah, well, and you know what makes it better when you get to watch it later is that the anxiety is gone. I mean, some of it still creeps up a little bit, but but you at least know the outcome, and it's just like, and I know the first couple of times, and I haven't gone back and watched in a while, but you keep thinking Bryant's throw is going to sail over Rizzo or something. It's going to, he's going to slip more and fall. But yeah, I've always been, it's always been very difficult for me to rewatch. I can rewatch something if it's in the background or if there's, the additional commentary, if they're showing it, but then you're getting, it's like watching a movie with the director's commentary or the star actor commentary or whatever, stuff like that, right? I need a different angle on it, just because it's really, I can't tape or DVR a game or whatever and then watch it after it's happened. Even if I never saw it live, I just, especially today with Twitter and other, hell, my fantasy alerts go off. Yesterday, it was just my phone kept ding, 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 because of between various leagues, somebody was doing something. So, but yeah, it is the way in which we consume the game. And I even just even since then, in the last few years, think about it. The Cubs have launched their own network, and to varying degrees of success. Just the streaming has changed in general, and the access to data and information that is almost real time. As far as those things are updated, and especially when you see things like exit velocities and different more granular, not just I'm using that as an example of a stat, but the things that come up that you can be made aware of almost instantaneously. And what's weird is when you stream, and this is one of my least favorite things about Marquee, other than the fact that half the time it doesn't work very well as an app, is that it's still on a delay. It's your proprietary network. Why are you operating it on a delay? You know what I mean?
That is the worst part about streaming.
Yeah,
for sure. And especially when I'm trying to man our Twitter account.
If you're on Twitter, you're finding out about what's
2 minutes later
before it has happened. Yeah. And even the MLB app, on radio, if I want to sit outside, if the evenings have been getting a little cooler. So if I want to put a little fire in a fire pit and sit out and listen to Pat and Ron, on the radio feed, not the direct radio, because I don't have an actual radio, it's through my phone. But you can, if I have a lot of times I'll do that and I'll have the TV on in the living room and I can see it through the window, and I'm watching it on, that's my Xfinity feed, and it's 2 pitches ahead of the radio feed through the MLB app sometimes. Which
the radio feed through the MLB app is always way behind, minutes.
Yeah. And it's behind the game day app. So if you have the radio feed going, but you're watching the app, like you're seeing it's a couple pitches sometimes, and sometimes it, again, depending on it, and then if something hits weird on the feed, then it'll kind of pause, then catch back up. It's so again, that is one thing about actually being there live, is that you don't need to worry about a delay.
No, there's definitely no delay.
However,
if there is, you've got issues.
Right. That's a real problem. That's in your mind. But I will say this, that there is, and they've gotten better with it, because now the officials, the umps have to come out and explain things on a review or whatever. But you don't know a lot of times, if you're there live at the game, it can be very difficult to know what was actually called. And I go back to, like, speaking of being there and all that, the Braves Cardinals, was it the DS? Several years ago, when there was the really controversial infield fly rule that was called, and that hurt the Braves, because, like, they called infield fly and the ball dropped like it would have been a hit, because it was deep. I mean, it was well into the outfield grass, but the ump made the call, and as a result, the batter's out. I think that ended the inning, and the fans were like rioting because they didn't know what was going on. If you were watching it on television, you knew it was infield fly, but there's no explanation of that going on. You can't see that he called it. And, like, people are throwing stuff onto the field and just getting nuts about it. And this is before, like, Twitter was as widespread. And that, I mean, this is, I'm trying to remember how long, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I knew somebody who was at the game, and he wasn't texting me, but I heard about it late. Like, he was having to text people to find out what was going on, like people who were watching it on TV. So you're there at the game and you don't know what's happening, which is always frustrating. So anyway.
Yes. Well, when Addison Russell hit that grand slam, I knew what was happening, but I'm not sure the Cleveland Indian fans knew what was happening. And I think they had to shake that one off. But,
actually, okay. So this is my last thing about grand slams and knowing what's happening and being there and then watching on television, because I went to a Cubs White Sox game a few years ago. And again, I was thankful to have gotten some seats in the 1914 club, and it was kind of a rainy day, so people weren't showing up, and they were staying, beneath in the actual club seats versus watching. It was like a cool rainy day, April or something like that. And Contreras hit a grand slam, and I'm in the first row right behind home plate and in clear view of the center field camera as he hit it. And as soon as he did, the first person you see me just jump up out of my seat and start cheering. And so it was funny to go back and look at it later, because I'm like kind of talking to the dude next to me watching it. It was like, oh, I just jumped up. So it was funny to see, like, how quickly I was like, because look, people make fun of Cubs fans for not knowing that fly balls are actually leaving or not, but there's some of them when they get hit that you just know, like, okay, that one's gonna go. And so anyway, that was kind of a funny funny moment. Anyway, maybe we'll talk about the actual Cubs now, the Cubs from today.
It's
not as fun though.
Good stuff to talk about, but I guess we can give it a shot. Let's do it. The Rockies took 2 of 3 from the Cubs. The Cubs just couldn't score at the end of the day. I mean, the Cubs pitched really well. I mean, with the exception of Javier Assad. I mean, Stroman, 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, and then Hughes and Rodriguez both looked really good. They didn't give up any runs, or, I think maybe 1 hit. And then Wesneski's debut was just outstanding. Was everything you could hope it would be. 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run. And Alzolay came in there, and he looked really good, struck out the side. But then in the next inning, the 9th inning, he got hit for 2 runs, and that basically was the game for the Cubs. And so it was from Alzolay, it was just a little blip. It wasn't anything to be concerned about. Like, it was like a triple, a single, a walk, something like that. I forget what it was, but yeah, it was just, I wasn't discouraged by any of that. In fact, I mean, it was the first time that Alzolay has pitched for the Cubs, and I thought it looked pretty good, generally speaking.
Yeah, I mean, hey, he got 5 strikeouts in 2 innings, and it was and Wesneski, gave up that run, couple of hits, but what do you have? 7 strikeouts and no walks, which is incredible. And it felt like one of those, and it was the same thing. So, like, the Friday game got done in like 2 hours and 10 minutes or whatever, 2-1, and then the Cubs lose. They win 2-1, they lose 3-1, and then they lose 4-3 or whatever. So, I mean, scoring And that's the thing. You get on him and be like, oh, well, Alzolay should have, but you got to score more than 3 runs against like the worst pitching staff in baseball, right? I know the Rockies are better away from Coors, but if you can't score 3 runs, you don't deserve to win regardless. And a lot of it did feel like even some of the stuff, the one Wesneski gave up, it wasn't like the Rockies were just crushing the ball all over. It's like they dink and dunk some stuff here and there, and they'd end up with a run. And that's kind of how, again, if your team's not scoring, it does become a little difficult. And I think for Alzolay, it even looked like, that the first, he got 3 strikeouts in that first inning, but he was definitely kind of finding himself a little bit, right? He was still, I don't know if it was a matter of just getting cute, shaking off the rust or the adrenaline or what, but didn't look incredibly sharp, but certainly it gave me a lot of hope. Just, I've talked about it on here a few times, in that I still think his best role is as a reliever, when they can use him for 1 or 2 or 3 innings, regardless of the leverage, really. And just be able to go out there, because he can get by without his best stuff, but he does seem to be someone who we've seen him in the past when he'll struggle with his command a little bit, right? And that can really come back to, obviously it can bite you if you walk 2 guys in an inning as a reliever, but as a starter, if you're out there and you're expected to go 5 or 6 innings at least, but even if you're getting outs, if you're having to do it at the risk of 5 and 6 and 7 pitch at bats pretty frequently, your pitch count piles up. You can't get deep into the game. So I love the idea of him as a reliever, particularly with some of these other arms they've got. And if they go target a starter.
Well, and I think his comments after the game were really interesting too, where it felt like he had already had that conversation with the Cubs coaching staff, because he went right to it, right? He mentioned that if his best role was out of the bullpen, and then he went on to talk about how, that could be a really good role for him to play, and however he wants to do, however he's going to do it, if he's going to be a long guy, if he's going to close or whatever, and how, that might provide more versatility for the team. So it kind of feels like that conversation's already been had, and that's what we can expect. And I mean, if you look at the Cubs and, just for next season, there's not any room on the starter for a starter, to be honest with you. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. You've got Wesneski, who I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be a starter. Justin Steele, 100% is a starter, and then Marcus Stroman, and then Hendricks, right?
And they're going to target. I fully expect them to go after some big name pitchers, and not to say they're going to sign multiple of them, but and then again, that's something we've brought up. That is something you're seeing from the guys at the Athletic. You're hearing about it from other areas as well. So that's you can call it informed speculation, right? Because you can't say right now the Cubs are going to go out. Oh, they're definitely getting this, but I mean, DeGrom feels like a serious long shot, but Carlos Rodon, potential trade for Shane Bieber. There's Kodai Senga from Japan, who's another dude who, I won't get into the comments about how people saying the Cubs shouldn't go after him because they haven't done well with Japanese position players, which is like
so dumb.
The wildest disparity in rationale that you could come up with. Not only is it just it's
not you shouldn't qualify and categorize people based on their heritage.
Yeah. Well, the Cubs shouldn't draft somebody from the University of Tennessee because the last 2 guys they drafted from Tennessee weren't very good. Like it doesn't make any sense to begin with. Not to mention,
we've got a steep learning curve.
Yeah.
Well,
this one hitter they got didn't live up to what we wanted him to. This other one isn't even done with his rookie season in Major League Baseball, also a position player, but has shown flashes of being really good. And because of that, they should not sign a pitcher. Like it's super dumb. I don't know, dude. He throws 100, right? He can touch 100, and he's got a nasty breaking ball and a splitter. Sign me up, right? Like let's go figure that out. Give me him and DeGrom. I don't care, but I do think that what we'll see is I do think they want to pick up 2 kind of premium tier players And from that point, then, right, so Ricketts talks about you can't buy a winner, and I don't think that's the goal at all. It's not like they're going out and trying to find 5 top-tier free agents, but you lock in one ace, and you lock in whether it's one of the shortstops they're going after, and that not only solidifies that lineup, kind of your core group of players from there, but I think that enables them to start talking about who are we willing to part with in terms of a trade. Because at some point, you have a bunch of these pitchers that can't all be on the roster.
And I agree. You can't buy a winner, but you can buy a World Series championship. So there's a big difference. You have to build a winning team, and then and then you can supplement it. And it's what the Cubs did when they brought on John Lester, and it's what they're going to need to do in the offseason. They're going to have a good team next season. I feel like we should be right around 2015. In terms of kind of like comparatively speaking, they could be even better than 2015. I don't know. It's hard to think they're going to win. Would they win 95 games that year? 97. Yeah. And so it's hard to think they're going to
still finish third place in the division. That's what's wild.
I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, I do think. I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, the Cardinals are going to be there again. Obviously, they've got some key guys there that are returning, but I do think the Cubs should be in the wild card conversation, possibly even the division title conversation. But yeah, it's interesting when you start talking about the starting lineup, because you've got, like I said, Stroman, Wesneski, Steele, Hendricks. I'm assuming Thompson's coming out of the bullpen because there's just no room for him in the starting lineup. And you've also got Smiley and Miley, and I think the Cubs have an option.
They've got an option on Smiley.
Smiley, right? Which they're going to have to exercise. I mean, why wouldn't you?
It would make no sense not to. I mean, with the way it's for 1 year at $10 million, right? Which is exactly what they picked up on Miley for this year. And, obviously that hasn't worked out for the simple fact that he's just been hurt most of the season. He's pitched well when he's been healthy.
Great. It's just, he's been great when he's
been so
there.
little. And, again, I think to me, and Smiley's another one of those guys, he has worked out of the bullpen before. He's got that experience, and I think what you have to pick that up, because at the end of the day, you can't guarantee. I mean, you could throw more money at one of these players, be it DeGrom or Rodon, or you could throw whatever your budget will allow. We'll put it that way, right? Somebody might offer more, or it might be that another team is willing to structure the deal differently and give them more opt-outs or different escalators, whatever the case may be, right? There's no way to guarantee, but if you have a team option on a player, you can absolutely guarantee that. And I think they have to do that for the sake of depth.
Yeah. I don't know, though. I can see, I agree with you, but I guess what I'm saying is you could see where the front office could convince themselves that they don't need to do anything on the pitching front. And if you look at how they performed in the second half of the season so far, I mean, they're one of the best ERAs in all of baseball. With the guys that they've got right now, and that's without Hendricks, which Hendricks wasn't great before he went on the IL anyways. But, it's very easy to see how they could justify to themselves not doing anything and standing pat. And I wouldn't blame them if they did. But if they do that, they better spend some money somewhere else, meaning they better get a third baseman. And, I'm not even sure what else they do, right? It's like you probably need maybe extend Wilson Contreras or something like that if they don't sign a pitcher. I mean, like, what would you expect them to do if they don't go out and sign a big name guy as a starting pitcher? Because you can really justify that they don't need to. What do you think they would need to do to kind of put themselves in position to, compete for the title for the
I mean, they have to go get one of the top tier position player free agents, and we'll say shortstop, right? Whether that person stays at short, although, I saw some interesting stuff. Yeah. Do you move him over to third? Does Horner go over to second? Because as good as Horner has been, there's two things that concern me. One is his health, simply because even though a lot of these things are for, you get hit on the wrist with a pitch, right? That's vastly different from some of the other things that have happened. He had a diving stop and a throw, and that's what kind of jacked up his tricep. That's different from a running, an injury where you step on the bag funny or tear your hammy or something like that. But he is kind of an all-out guy. We've seen that he's had some injuries, and a ton of his value defensively has actually come, a lot of his great plays have come over on the right side when he's playing at second base in the shift. Well, guess what? There's no more shift next year. He doesn't get to play over on that side unless he plays on that side. So, they have to go big. And like you said, extended Contreras, got to go sign another dude, got to go big time on that stuff if you're not getting a pitcher. But I would just as soon see them sign a pitcher. So that's just me.
Yeah, but that's clearly where they need help, right? I mean, if you look at how, they just scored 6 runs, their offense has been really bad in the second half. I mean, who was leading their offense? They've got Zach McKinstry batting leadoff, which to me is just them trying to lose. Gomes, David Bodie, guys like that. It's nice to see Jared Young make his debut. He had a couple doubles. That was cool. Watching his family celebrate. That's always fun. But Christopher Morel has really been struggling lately. Franmil Reyes has been struggling. Patrick Wisdom, I just don't see him as being a part of the future. And so there's a number of guys that the Cubs really are going to need to replace as they go forward. And there's going to be some room to be able to do that. So,
yeah, I think that 40-man, and there's, a lot of people are wondering, why do we see Esteban Quiroz and why do we see Jared Young, and those guys they weren't tearing the cover off the ball at AAA, but the whole thing is, again, a lot of the Cubs want to maintain flexibility. Those are dudes who, when it comes time to establish that 40-man, once the season is over, will not be on it. They'll be DFA'd. They're almost certain to clear waivers, and then the Cubs can try to keep them back in the system, which did not happen with Frank Schwindel. He did clear waivers and asked for and was granted his release. So he's gone. I don't know.
I would imagine he's done. I mean, if I were him, right? I mean, I just don't see much of a future for him.
Unless a team like, maybe he'll get a minor league deal with an invite to spring training. He might be able to catch on with a team that kind of needs it. I mean, he's a good dude, right? I mean,
yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
I don't think he's a major league player.
No, as we talked about, the problem is the pop just isn't there. And he hit a few home runs here and there, and it was, but yeah, I think they will be. We'll see a lot of shuffling around at the bottom of that 40-man, and a lot of it's still going to be, a lot of that churn's still going to happen all the way through spring training. So there's a lot
and I mean,
to be determined.
If you're a guy that's in Iowa right now, you don't want to get called up, especially if, because you're like, if you get called up, you pretty much know you're going to get DFA'd. Javier Assad probably fits that role. Like you said, Jared Young. I can't see Zach McKinstry being with the club next year. I don't think Patrick Wisdom's going to be there. I'm not sure about Franmil Reyes.
He's only
a lot of question marks.
Is he still? Is Reyes ARB eligible, or is he? What's his contract status? I don't even remember.
I think so, but I'd have to look. I think so, yeah.
But yeah, do they tender him? Is there, what about come on, Michael Rucker, Mark Leiter Jr. I mean, there's a bunch of dudes who, for all intents and purposes, are very replaceable, right? And I don't mean that as a knock on them. It's simply that, especially if you're talking pitching,
when you talk about replacement level guys, right? They are.
Yeah, it's just and the team would not be as concerned about being able to pass them through waivers and ideally be able to keep hold of them, right? And that's kind of the thing is if you're expendable in the front office's eyes, there's a good chance that they'll need to look through and reset, and they can always put them back on the roster. We've seen that with some other guys in the past. So Adrian Sampson for one. So
yeah. So it should be interesting going down the stretch here. The Cubs play. They travel to Miami, which is odd because I'm going to be in Miami, but it's not until Saturday.
I'm going to be in Miami. Bummer. Well, I won't be in Miami. I'll be in Fort Lauderdale and West Palm tomorrow, but not nice. I will not be seeing. Normally, I've done that before, and I've seen the Cubs play down there. Yeah, it's first of all, it's like you think about all that stuff as being, and it truly is like it is just one long stretch of metropolitan area and whatever from all the way from the tip of Florida all the way up through. I mean, you go West Palm and further north, and so you think of it all being kind of this conglomerate, but like it is a beast to drive up and down 95 there sometimes, depending on the days. But I'm actually gonna end up going to a concert one of those nights. But I also don't really necessarily want to watch the Cubs and the Marlins play or to spend my time to go down there and watch them at this point. They're pretty bad.
It's, when I was there, I was staying at the airport and I was with my son, and the Marlins games came on the TV of the restaurant that we were at. And I was like, I think the stadium's really close to here. And so I looked it up and it was like 5 minutes away. And so we went over there. So if you're ever staying by the airport and there's a Marlins game going on, go. Super cheap. I think the whole thing, not including like drinks and stuff at the game, but the whole thing, tickets and the Uber from our hotel by the airport to get there was like $20.
Oh, yeah, that's solid. I mean, that's what's nice is if you are right there. And there's always there's times that you can, if you're in the right spot, which is actually, and I'm actually going to Tampa the following day, and I forgot that I had planned it out this way, and it's great because I was like, oh man, I might have to Uber here. What am I going to have to do? And I realized it's one of the smart things I've ever done is that I'm actually staying at the Tampa Airport Marriott, so it's like literally in the airport. So that morning I have a 7 a.m. flight coming home on Thursday, which is wonderful because I don't have to get up and drop off the rental car. I don't have to get an Uber. I just have to walk out of the hotel and into the airport.
Yeah, that is nice.
Which is, I was like, oh God, I did something smart because, first world problems, man. But I there's nothing I hate more than having to go drop off a rental car at the ass crack of dawn, and then try to make a flight and do all that stuff. So anyway.
Yes, I agree 100%. So the Cubs play the Marlins. We're going to get Miley Sampson and then Smiley. And so yeah, I mean, as long as the Cubs can get some runs, which conceptually they should be able to, although Edward Cabrera has had a pretty nice season and that he'll be pitching today or tonight for the Marlins. So it's possible the Cubs get shut down there, but Pablo Lopez going on Tuesday. So, that's the thing is I think the Cubs are going to continue to pitch well down the stretch. It's just a matter of, are they going to be able to, conjure up enough offense with the guys that they have in there playing? I mean, if it's not Ian Happ going 3 for 4, there's no one else in there. Wilson Contreras isn't playing, Nico's not in there. I mean, it's just.
And Suzuki was swinging a really hot bat too. And then he's on paternity leave, just had his wife just had a baby boy is my understanding. And so that's what kind of stinks is that you did have some of these guys who have been coming around and hitting so well, and now they're out. And so that not only does the offense lack a lot of punch, but there's not any real sort of continuity in there. It's just a weird dudes are just kind of patchworked in there, however they can fit them.
It feels like a AAA team. It really does.
Yeah, or spring training. It's like the split squad group that is at the away game, right? It's the split squad game that went out to Scottsdale or something. And you're like, wait a minute, who are these guys?
Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. So we've got, let's see, the Pirates series starts on Thursday. So we probably circle back and do another show on Thursday. And then I'm going to be traveling. So I don't know what it's going to be like after that. And then we're going to meet up in Chicago, hopefully, assuming everything works out there. And so some way or another, definitely Thursday, and then we'll figure it out after that.
Cool.
How's that sound?
I can get with that.
Sweet. All right, cool. Well, good chatting. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And we will see you guys later. Go Cubs.
All right.